Hello, I'm Blue, and welcome to my channel. Let me ask you a simple question, and I want you to actually pause for a second and think about it, not just skip past it. How many steps did you walk today? Was it 10,000, 5,000, maybe even less? Or maybe you genuinely have no idea. And honestly, that's completely okay. Most people don't track it consistently, and even if you do, some days are just different. But here's something really interesting. And this is where things start to get a bit deeper. Scientists all around the world have been studying this exact question for years, not just casually, but seriously across multiple countries, with thousands of participants, trying to understand something very fundamental about human health. Not just how many steps we take, but also questions like, does it matter how fast you walk? Does walking speed actually influence your health outcomes? And what about something we all do without thinking? Sitting. If you spend most of your day sitting at a desk, working, scrolling, watching, resting, could that be quietly affecting your health, even if you exercise regularly? And maybe the most surprising question of all, can something as simple and accessible as a daily walk actually help protect your brain from depression? Today I've carefully gone through 5 major scientific studies, in detail, so you don't have to spend hours reading them yourself. And when you put all of their findings together, they tell a story that is not only fascinating, but also surprisingly practical, realistic, and in some ways, very reassuring. So stick with me until the end, because a few small insights here could genuinely change how you think about movement in your daily life. And if you enjoy content like this, simple, science-based, and actually useful, take a second to like the video, subscribe, and let me know you're here. It really helps more people find this kind of information. Alright, let's get into it. Before we dive into the research itself, I want to give you a short piece of history, something that might completely change how you look at one of the most common health recommendations out there. You've definitely heard this before. Walk 10,000 steps a day. It sounds official, almost like a medical rule, something backed by decades of science. But here's the reality. It didn't start that way at all. It actually started as a marketing idea. Back in 1965, a Japanese company introduced a pedometer, a small, simple device designed to count your steps. They gave it a name, Manpo-K, which literally translates to 10,000 step meter. It was clever. It was memorable. It sounded meaningful. People repeated it. Fitness culture adopted it. It became a kind of global standard, even though it wasn't originally based on scientific evidence. So naturally, researchers started asking a very important question. What does science actually say? Is it just a convenient number that stuck around? And beyond that, what does walking really do for us? Not just physically, but mentally as well. That's exactly what the studies we're about to explore set out to answer. Part 1. The Step Count Study expanded further. Let's start with something that directly affects your daily life, something measurable, simple, and very relevant. In 2022, a major international study published in The Lancet Public Health brought together data from 15 different studies. We're talking about tens of thousands of people from different countries, different lifestyles, tracked over time. The goal was straightforward. Is there a connection between how many steps you take each day and how long you live? And more importantly, is 10,000 really the number we should all be aiming for? More steps are associated with a lower risk of death from any cause, but, and this is the key point, the benefits don't increase forever. They level off. For adults over 60, the biggest benefits were seen between 6,000 and 8,000 steps per day. For younger adults under 60, the range was slightly higher, around 8,000 to 10,000 steps per day. So no, you don't need extreme numbers. Now, let's add another layer to this, because it's not just about quantity. It's also about quality. The researchers looked at something called peak stepping rate. In simple terms, this refers to how fast you walk during your most active period of the day, maybe a 30-minute walk, or a slightly faster-paced commute. And what they found was subtle, but important. People who walked faster during those peak moments had lower mortality risk, independent of how many total steps they took. So think about that for a second. It's not just about hitting a number on your phone. It's also about adding a bit of intensity, a bit of intention, even for a short period of time. A slightly faster walk, a bit more energy, those small differences might matter more than we tend to realize. Part 2. Move more, sit less, expanded further. Now let's shift to something that might feel a bit uncomfortable, but is incredibly important. Let me describe a situation that might sound familiar. Someone wakes up early. They go to the gym for 45 minutes. They check all the boxes: cardio, strength, movement, they feel like they're doing everything right, but then they spend the rest of the day sitting, driving, working at a desk, sitting at home, watching something to relax. So the question becomes, does that workout cancel out the rest of the day? According to the research, not entirely. A 2015 study in the Annals of Internal Medicine, reviewing 47 studies, found that prolonged sitting is linked to negative health outcomes, independently of exercise. Meaning, even if you exercise, sitting for long periods still carries its own risks: heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and certain cancers. And then in 2019, a study in the BMJ added even more clarity. Instead of relying on self-reported data, they used motion tracking devices to measure real activity. Over 36,000 participants, and what they found was actually encouraging in a way. Even light activity, slow walking, standing, small movements, was associated with a lower risk of death. Not intense workouts, not perfection, just movement. At the same time, they found that risk increases significantly when daily sitting exceeds about 9.5 hours, and around 12 hours, the risk was nearly 3 times higher. So the message here is not extreme. It's practical. You don't need to overhaul your life overnight, but you do need to interrupt long periods of stillness. Stand up, walk a little, move your body, even gently. Those small interruptions matter more than they seem. Part 3, Walking and Your Brain, expanded further. Now let's talk about something deeper, something that goes beyond physical health, your mental state. We often separate physical and mental health, but in reality, they're deeply connected. So the question is, can movement, even something as simple as walking, affect your mental well-being? Large-scale research suggests that it can. A 2018 study in the American Journal of Psychiatry analyzed 49 studies covering nearly 267,000 people. And the finding was consistent. People who were more physically active had about a 17% lower risk of developing depression across all age groups, across different regions. That consistency matters. Then another study, it found that people who exercised reported fewer days of poor mental health, about 1.5 fewer days per month. That's a meaningful difference over time. Now here's where it gets interesting. Not all movement had the same effect. Activities that combined movement with social interaction, like team sports, had the strongest impact. Walking still helped significantly, but ranked slightly lower, and once again, balance was key. Too much exercise, too frequent, too long, was actually associated with worse outcomes. The optimal range, about 45 minutes, 3 to 5 times per week. Not extreme, not overwhelming, just consistent. Before we wrap this up, there's one more subtle idea from these studies that I think is worth slowing down and really thinking about. A lot of us tend to think about health in extremes. We imagine that if we're not doing everything perfectly, hitting exact step counts, following strict routines, exercising intensely, then somehow it doesn't count. But what these studies consistently suggest is almost the opposite. Health doesn't seem to come from extreme, short bursts of effort followed by long periods of inactivity. Instead, it seems to come from something much simpler and much more human. Small, repeated actions. Getting up for a few minutes after sitting too long, choosing to walk instead of taking a short ride, walking a little faster for part of your day without overthinking it. These aren't dramatic changes, but over weeks, months, and years, they quietly accumulate. And that's really what stands out across all this research. Not intensity, not perfection, but consistency. So if there's one mindset shift to take away from this, it's this. You don't need to overhaul your life overnight. You just need to move a little more than you did yesterday. So let's take a step back and bring everything together. 5 major studies, millions of people, years of data, and the message that comes out of all of this is surprisingly simple and honestly quite human. Your body is built to move, not perfectly, not excessively, but regularly. You don't need to chase 10,000 steps every single day. You don't need extreme routines, but you do need consistency, movement throughout your day, a bit of pace, less sitting. Because all of these things, even in small amounts, are linked to living longer, feeling better, and reducing long-term health risks. Science doesn't promise perfection, but it does show patterns. And across all these studies, across different methods and populations, one pattern is clear. Movement matters more than we often realize. Now I want to hear from you. Did anything here surprise you? Do you track your steps, or not at all? Let me know in the comments. I read them and I genuinely enjoy seeing your perspective. And if this video gave you even one useful insight, share it with someone who spends a lot of time sitting. It might help more than you think. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.